it was a desire to do a job that didn't, it wasn't going to be the same, that wasn't going to be monotonous. I'd had a placement where I could have told you what I'd be doing at 11:30, 6 Fridays from now, or 2:15 on any given Wednesday. And the thought of doing that for many tens of years was not something that I relished. So I wanted something that was going to be different. I have a dislike of injustice, and I wanted to help. And I was also very much looking forward to a job with security, and that was at the time a 30-year service, whereby I would be able to then retire and do something that to follow my own personal interests, to take up activities that I had not been able to do up until that point, and to sort of not find that I was working up till any given day and then dying 6 months later. It's dropped hugely. I, for many years, believed we were doing a fantastic job. I see that less and less. We don't have the staff to deal with the work that we have to do, what's expected of us, what people want from us. The quality of what we've done has decreased, in a way, just to try and cope with the volume of work that's coming in. There were the types of, I mean, I never thought I would have to deal with some of the things that I've dealt with over the years that have been horrendously traumatic. I hadn't even considered it at the time. And then I heard people saying, well, you knew what it was when you joined. And I'm thinking, no, I definitely didn't. And it's just a struggle. The workload, the expectation, the lack of support, it all goes with not having enough people to do what needs to be done, and to do it right. Even the civilian stuff that we used to have that did lots of the file building and liaison between officers and the CPS, they all disappeared sort of around the sort of austerity time, when the budgets were hanging. We lost a load of officers because they'd done more than 30 years, so they could be required to go. We lost tons of experience with that, and people that really wanted to be there. They were staying on past 30 years, making a huge positive contribution, but costs needed to be saved, and they went. So and year on year, it just gets worse. I spent many years thinking, well, it can't get any worse. It won't get any worse, but it always did. It hasn't got any better. I speak to my colleagues in my old department, and the workload they have and the lack of staff they have is awful. People just don't stay long enough. It used to be a vocation. It was a career, and I think now it's just a job. I think it's a bit like cabin crew. That it sounds good, it looks good, and for a period of time it is good, but you very quickly get run down and effectively then look for something else, a real job in inverted commas, and it'll look good on your CV that you did it, and it'll help you potentially, depending on what else you go on to do. But ultimately, the way they've designed it now, so that you're supposed to be working into your mid-60s, nobody's going to do that. A cynic might say it was designed that way so that they'd never have to pay a pension. I cannot see anybody staying that long, not being able to stay that long. And in his 60s, my father was a very fit, he still is, but a very fit man. But in his 60s, if I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and he was trying to tell me what to do, I would not feel that there was much authority held, and that the slightest sort of bit of speed on my half would have left them behind, and they would not physically be able to um, detain me if I decided I didn't want to be detained. And the last thing I would have wanted to have seen was my 60 whatever year old father hurt because they were um, out on the street doing the job they wanted to do. People say, but officers that long in service wouldn't be on the street. Well, you don't know that. There can only be a finite number of promotions. And I know many, many officers who have spent their entire 30-year career working either as a neighbourhood police officer or on response. They haven't gone to CID or a child protection team or being promoted. They have been effectively at the very sharpest end of the police force their entire career and have had no desire to move away from it. So taking it forward, they would have still been there at the end of their service, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I don't think anybody will stay. It's been awful. It's been awful. I've had panic attacks previously. I have on occasion had anxiety attacks. Have been very sort of anxious and worn down by the role and the treatment that we've received, or I've received, by individuals that has eroded my, and I've only just realized this recently, eroded my resilience, if I can call it that, my ability to bounce back from things. I feel like any sort of supplies of resilience I had have just gone. I don't feel I've got anything left. And it's a real struggle, and it's embarrassing for somebody of my age to admit. I feel it's embarrassing that I can't cope. It's awful, and it's not just the stress caused by sort of the treatment of staff by the organisation. It's also the accumulated stress from helping the public. I mentioned that, well, you knew what it was when you joined, sort of argument. Well, investigating indecent images of children isn't something that was on my radar when I joined. And it used to be that you might go into a house and you might seize, I don't know, 10 or 20 bin bags full of VHS tapes. And you'd have to go through each tape to see what was on or not on the tape. And that would be quite sort of time consuming. Nowadays, a mobile phone or a computer could have several 100,000 images of whatever on there. And again, I thought maybe a computer would sort it all out. But whilst the computer does determine the type of images on there, it is still down to an individual officer to go through and view and grade each of those images. And that is absolutely horrendous, absolutely awful. One of the other things I've done in my career has worked as a family liaison officer, supporting the families of victims of murder. And it's something I've enjoyed massively, but it just takes so much from you emotionally, and again from your resilience and your ability to cope with things, to see the absolute worst and then be so close to families living the absolute grief that horrendous behaviour has brought to them. It's been a great privilege to support the families that I have done, but it can almost bring tears to my eyes just thinking about each family and each case that I was able to help with. It's just so painful. You can't just walk in and walk out. You're with the family for months, supporting them through absolutely everything right until the conclusion of the case. And as I say, it's something I've enjoyed so much, but it takes it away from you. And again, that's something else that's not a role I even knew existed, and possibly didn't even exist when I joined. One job of those that I had was at the time of the birth of my child, and I was viewing images of babies being abused, and I had to go home and care for my child. Um, and there wasn't anybody else to do the job. So it wasn't, they could go, well, actually, you've just become a father. Maybe this isn't the right thing for you to be looking at. Um, and we had a visit from a welfare officer within the organisation who wanted to talk to us about, because it was then decided that we wouldn't view these images on our own. We'd have to view them together with somebody else. So two of us would have to view the images at the same time. And they said, don't worry if you get aroused by these images. They're pornographic images designed to cause arousal. So that's not a problem. And we kind of looked at each other and thought, they do realize this is indecent images that children will be having to review. I think we all feel that if we felt aroused by these images, we'd have some very serious concerns about ourselves. And there was no help. We just had to rely on each other for support. But you're both going through it at the same time, or the group of you that are reviewing things, you're going through it at the same time. So you're all suffering, and yet you're all relying on the other person for help and support, emotional and otherwise. And nobody asked for that. I appreciate there's victims behind all of this, and they are the victims. We're not, I suppose we could be classified as sort of collateral damage in the process, but I don't want to make this about me or my colleagues. There are true victims out there and we needed to do something to try and help, but there's never been any support. It's talked about often, but the application of it is less certain, and relies on supervisors having I can't think what the phrase for it is. Emotional intelligence. I'm not sure if that's the right phrase, but empathy and understanding, compassion, all these sorts of things, which you don't necessarily get. And it's not necessarily just within the police. I suspect you might not get fantastic supervisors in any organisation, but there's certainly not been enough emphasis placed on the ability to support emotionally the staff under your care over the years, and it all builds up, and it's a colleague of mine, I think, once referred to it as workplace PTSD, and I don't mean that in a way that belittles people that have who have PTSD, but little things just trigger off flashbacks to incidents that have happened, and the sort of dread that it's all going to happen again, that you're reliving this sort of thing again. It's a real thing, and it's heartbreaking. It has it's a hugely negative impact, and I am lucky enough to have be with a partner who is so supportive, and she's really helped me over the years to the point that I owe her a debt I don't think I'll ever be able to repay. And unfortunately, I am in a position at this precise moment where I'm going through another sort of similar sort of set of scenarios, which is all coming back, and anxieties through the roof, and I know she will struggle again to help me, because she's got her own issues with her own work and her own sort of work to get through. So to help me, trying to cope, is a huge testament to her. But it's not fair on her. It's not fair on our child, that I've been sort of, I don't know, morose or angry or just disinterested maybe, or just, I mean, sometimes you're decisioned out, I find, and sometimes I would get home and and she'd say something, oh, let's go to the shops to get something for dinner. What shall we have for dinner? And I'm thinking, I can't even cope with this decision. I don't want to make this decision. I've spent all day making decisions from, and all of it. Can somebody please just choose something? I don't want to make a decision. But she may also have had a day where she's had to be making lots of decisions and doing things, and she doesn't really want to make decisions either. They're different sorts of decisions, but it's still this constant, everybody's looking to you for the answer and expecting you just to know, because you're a police officer. You'll know, and you don't all the time. But the expectation is always there, and your supervisor may come to you and they're the one with the rank, but they want you to make the decision as to what's happening. And I understand all that, but it just builds up, and you're spinning plates, and you're constantly just trying to make sure that the slowest plate has been sped up just enough to keep it going, as you are constantly racing around the room, trying to keep every plate on top of its pole. So yeah, just deciding what's for dinner sometimes it's just too much. Even before you take the, I don't know, 20-something% real terms cuts that we've all taken since 2010. I earn less than a train driver. A friend of mine has just started this year as a bus driver, and their starting salary is higher than that of a newly recruited police officer. Whilst it's possible that the police officer can earn more than the bus driver over the years if they go for promotion and they get promotion or they want promotion, I think if you were to sort of take that out, the bus driver will always earn more than the police officer. The responsibility that police officers have, as to deprive people of their liberty, is absolutely unique. And even a constable, so not a management position, has a role of managing a scene, managing an investigation, that I suppose in the private sector you might call it project management, but it's far more serious than coming up with a new logo for the corporation, or a new IT platform. It affects people's lives directly, what you're doing, and so there's a huge responsibility, and that doesn't even cover the restrictions placed on your life by the job that you do. So police officers have to ask for permission to reside. I believe that's still the case. It certainly was when I joined, where you have to submit a request for the house that you wish to buy or potentially rent, to check that the organisation is happy with that. You're prohibited from engaging in politics in any way, shape, or form. You, through PERDA, the weeks leading up to an election, either national or local, or even, I suppose, for a mayor or a PCC, you're not allowed to talk. You're not allowed to say anything. You can't say what you think, what you feel, what your experience is, and which one you think would be best for either you as an individual, your town, your county, or your organisation. But then our PCCs are directly aligned to political parties, so it becomes even more strange that having somebody affiliated to a political party, but we can't speak. We're never allowed to speak. I don't have social media accounts, but if I did, you've got to be careful what you say there. People know you're a police officer, so all it takes is somebody to put a malicious allegation in to put you through potentially a considerable period of stress whilst it's all sorted out. You're open to complaints constantly. Just absolutely everything that's geared towards the scrutiny which is needed, but no other person, no other organization has that, and there is no quid pro quo on it. It's just, we don't even have employment rights. We're servants of the crown, so we have no say in anything that happens to us. None at all. I have considered leaving on a number of occasions, but the reasons I've stayed are because despite the destruction of our pension, it was something that by that time I'd paid into for so long that I felt that it would be too much of my future financial security to just throw it out with the bathwater. But there's also been issues of management actions where I suppose that we talk about it as a clash of personalities, where it's quite clear that I'm not on the inner circle list, and my life has suffered as a result of that. And I've mentioned anxiety and panic attacks, all sort of related to that treatment. But I figured that if you want to use the term bad management, that could exist anywhere. And so to change for that alone would not be necessarily a good move, because a similar type person might turn up as a management position in any other company I could join, short of working for myself, that would give me the same problems. And as I said, I spent many years believing that it couldn't get any worse, truly hoping that it would get better. Lots of things promised, but it just never happened. I spent a long time hanging on to hope, which turned out not to exist. But that's how I've ended up being there for so long. But I think if the sort of things that are happening now had happened much earlier in my service, given the conditions of service now and the length of time for a full pension, the starting salary, the pay progression that you go through, I wouldn't have stayed. I would have probably left relatively quickly once I'd understood actually what everything meant for me as an individual and my family, the restrictions and how it actually impacts on me. I think I would have left. I'm almost certain I wouldn't have stayed very long at all. I probably see that link has been slightly separated, because I have to do my job, whatever I'm paid, and it's I mean, the lack of pay. I mean, if I think about it, we went on our last family holiday. I was just thinking about this the other day. 8 years ago. It's been 8 years since we were able to take a holiday as a family. We got to the position this year where we might have been able to have a holiday, but in trying to book some time off this year for, as I say, first holiday in 8 years, due to staffing restrictions on the amount of staff allowed off at any given time, and I asked him, I think it was January, the first opportunity to take time off was October. So that ruled that one out. My car is 22 years old. I've never had a new car. I never will have a new car, but that's just not possible. We've considered leasing or taking a loan out but it just has never been possible. So it's a question of keeping the car running, um, and, uh, and hoping that it'll be reliable enough going on. Um, Everything has gone up so much more. Um, my partner was just talking about we were thinking about having a roast for for a meal at the weekend a few weeks ago, and I can't remember what the prices were, but she was saying that she remembers when a joint of lamb or pork or something like that was possibly a third of the price that it is now, and how what is today called a large chicken used to be what would have been possibly a medium at best, but you're paying the same for it. What you're buying, you're getting less for, but it's still the same price. Packs which may have contained 9 items now come with 8, or were 300 grams that are now 250. That kind of shrinkflation, I think they call it. We have only ever had one home, and so by definition, when we bought it, it was our first home, a starter home, if you like. Even with both our salaries having increased, we could not afford the house today. If we had to, with our salaries as they are, we couldn't borrow enough to buy it. And I don't know how that's happened. Just in my head, when house prices for the type of house that we have got to the prices that they are now, I envisaged that a loaf of bread may cost £5, and that people, instead of being paid tens of thousands of pounds, would maybe be paid nearly £100,000 for any given profession. But it's just not happened. Wages have not risen. I've never received any decent amount of interest from my bank from any money that I may have been able to save at any given point over the years. It's a constant struggle. I know colleagues of mine who use food banks. I never ever saw that coming. I can't believe that things have got that bad. That my colleagues are struggling that hard. Obviously, greater mortgages. I'm just, by virtue of my age and the time I started work, it's nothing but luck that caused me to be in a position to buy a home at the time that we bought it. But if we were back in our 20s, I'm not sure what we do. It would we wouldn't be in a house, we'd be in a flat, and the mortgage would be huge, and it would take a massive portion of our income every month, leaving relatively, if not anything, for anything other than day-to-day living. We don't eat out with any regularity. It's I can't think of that. It's not something we can plan on doing. Trips are we do some sort of trips, but we don't stay anywhere. There's some day trips. But in terms of it sort of affecting the job, I mean, short of the car breaking down, not being able to get in, it's just a slog. And sure, if it's Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill, you just feel you go back every day and the rock's back at the bottom, and you just got to keep pushing it up, and there's no end in sight to anything. And it's not as if you can go home and go, oh well, at least we've got that holiday to look forward to in the summer or the winter. It's not happening. Not always. Many of the people that I've helped, uh, that I've worked on cases for, have been hugely supportive and um, understand sort of to a degree the pressures that we're under and the problems that we face in trying to get cases um, to court and to get successful prosecutions. But there's an ever-growing number of people that it doesn't seem to matter what you do, it's not good enough, and all they do is complain about you or tell you how to do your job or that they pay my wages, um, which is weird because I pay my wages too because I pay tax um, and council tax. So it's just some people treat you like some serf, and they feel as if they have a right to tell you what they want to happen. And it's very challenging trying to deal with people who have that view. I think on the whole, probably the majority of people probably still do support the police and to a degree understand, but there's been so much, I suppose, misinformation that's been allowed um, to go unchallenged in the media and through politicians, especially with regards to our pension, that somehow it's this gold-plated um, pension that's so much better than everybody else gets, and how we should be so grateful for it. And don't get me wrong, I was grateful for the pension that I signed up for when I joined, but I pay a hell of a lot into it myself. And as with any pension, the earlier you start in life paying into one, the better it will be. If you don't start a pension till your 30s, it won't be as good, given, say, the time that you work, as if you started it 10 years earlier in your 20s. So the amount of the hundreds of pounds that I pay and have paid every month go towards this alleged gold-plated pension. And I think that leads, possibly by design, to try and cause resentment between the public and the private sector, and the police and the public in general. But again, we can't say anything about it, so you just have to take it. But I also think it depends where you work, or where the people are that you're dealing with. I think areas with older communities are the ones where you're probably more likely to find support than in areas where there's a much younger um, um, populations. I think the attitudes towards police officers has changed over the years, and I can just see that myself from remembering when I was a child, seeing the local police officer where we lived that had a house in the village or the town, and was seen around. People refer to that as kind of a Dixon of Dock Green approach. But so my parents, my grandparents, their view of police is still aligned very much to that memory. And so I think that colours to a degree their attitudes today. And if you've seen or had that, I think the result is that I tend to find more support. Might just be my personal experience, but that's what I found. I think they should be aligned far more to the responsibilities that we have on us and the restrictions that we have placed on us. We can't strike. We can't. The pay negotiation board needs to be binding on both sides. At the moment, as my understanding is, that they would potentially say, we believe that a pay increase of X% is required or deserved or necessary, and the government could go, no, we're not going to do that, and then that's the end of that. I think there needs to be a Royal Commission to look into police pay and conditions, and to stop the sort of historic link sort of between the military and the police in terms of roles and ranks, because they're not just not comparable. You need to look wider. Even the basic constable has far more responsibility than many middle or upper management roles in the private sector. Other thing is that what is it? The conditions. There needs to be. Oh yes, sorry. It needs to be fully funded. That's the other thing. The police need to be fully funded by central government. There shouldn't be this constant reliance on pushing out money which needs to be is needed by the police and other public services to counties to try and get that money that's not given by government, saying, oh, it's okay, we'll just put up the council tax. We'll just get it in by another taxation route. It needs to be centrally funded, and it needs to be centrally funded properly. And when pay rises are given, to say, but that has to come out of existing budgets, or part of it needs to come out of existing budgets, that's not helping. That's making matters worse, so much worse, because we then have to cut. Where are we going to cut from in terms of the budgets to facilitate? So that also, I think, can be spun as a negative, that somehow we've kicked up, the police have kicked up such a fuss about pay that they've given us 1.5%, but that's now got to be found out of existing budgets. So now they're going to cut this. And so local people feel that the pay rise is the cause of a lack of service, that they have a reduction in service, or they perceive their front counters aren't open anymore, or as often, that we lose staff in what would be termed the back office, but do such a fundamentally important role. For example, the prosecution caseworkers that we had, I mentioned earlier, with the building of files, it takes an inordinate amount of time, which is time that the officer used to spend being able to go back out to carry on the role as the public sees it to be, rather than being buried under CPS requests for further information and further work and preparation of court bundles and just everything associated with taking a case to court that used to be done by staff who were cut because budgets needed to be saved. So I think, yes, Royal Commission, binding pay negotiation on the government, and fully funded from central taxation. I would not recommend it. I would not encourage anybody to join the police. You risk serious harm on a daily basis. You never know what's going to happen. So the bit that I liked about not knowing what was going to happen on a given day, actually a lot more today comes with a sort of a double-edged sort of sword, of which serious harm could be what's coming. It's about figures. It's becoming more corporate in terms of efficiencies. I'm hearing now, and other things that just take away your ability. We used to have the ability, for sake of on nights, we had enough officers that we could take 3 or 4 of us, go into plain clothes, ride on bikes around the estates, and catch people either breaking into houses or cars, stealing car stereos, which shows the kind of length of time ago I'm talking about. That it just isn't possible now. Proactive work is the fun stuff that you could do, a plan an operation to target a particular crime or antisocial issue. You haven't been able to do that for years, and probably will never be able to do that again. I remember before personal issue body armor, used to have occasionally, there might be some body armor in the boot of the car. It was probably wet and covered in sand from the traffic cones that were also in the boot, and was highly unlikely to be a size that would fit you. And if you were a woman, absolutely not. It would not fit you at all. And we went to a call for concern. A lady had called up to say that her friend had called her and the phone had been taken off her by her boyfriend, and she thought there was maybe something going on, and was a bit worried. Could we go and check on her? I went with my colleague. He reversed the car in next to another vehicle. I was in the passenger seat. I opened my car door effectively against the car that was parked to my left-hand side. The house was behind us, and as I turned to walk towards the back of the car, I saw my colleague grapple with a male and hold him against the boot of the car, our car. It turns out I hadn't heard the lady from the house shout, "He's got a knife," and my partner had seen him reaching into his back pocket and had grabbed hold of him and restrained him. He did have a knife in his back pocket. At the time, we had side-handled batons. I was trapped in about 1.5 feet space between two vehicles, with a door open behind me, preventing me from being able to move backwards away from this person who had been approaching me, and I hadn't seen him. I bought my own body armor the next day. A saying which I have found that really applies to policing, and has done for many years, but it's only now that I've really become aware of it, and that's that today is worse than yesterday, but it's better than tomorrow will be. And that's how it all seems to be going. It's the way it has been going, and it shows no signs of changing.